You are sitting in your car, the engine is off, and the blue and red lights are reflecting in every mirror. You've handed over your license, you've kept your hands visible, and you've been as polite as possible. But then it happens. The officer taps the side of your car and says those 8 words that send a jolt of pure adrenaline through your system: step out of the vehicle. Please. At this exact moment, your brain goes into a tailspin. Do you have to obey? Is this a trap? Is your car about to be searched? Most people think that if they just comply immediately, they'll look cooperative and get back on the road faster. But as a lawyer, I am here to tell you that the moment you open that car door, you are entering a high-stakes legal minefield where your every move is being recorded and analyzed for evidence. There is a specific set of actions you must take the very second that command is given to protect your constitutional rights, your physical safety, and your legal record. If you don't do this one thing first, you might be accidentally giving up every protection the Fourth Amendment provides. Today, we are breaking down the law of the exit, the biology of the encounter, and the professional roadmap to handling a police order to step out like an expert. To understand why this moment is so critical, we have to look at the legal foundation. In the United States, there is a Supreme Court case called Pennsylvania versus Mims. This ruling changed everything for drivers. It established that an officer can order a driver out of a vehicle during a lawful traffic stop for essentially any reason, primarily based on officer safety. You do not have a right to refuse the order to step out. If you refuse, you are likely going to be arrested for obstruction or resisting. However, while the law says you must get out, it does not say you have to give up your privacy or your right to silence in the process. The order to step out is often a bridge the police use to get to a search or an interrogation. Your job is to make sure that bridge leads to a dead end. The very first thing you must do before your foot touches the pavement is a status check. You need to ask one specific question. Officer, am I being detained, or am I free to go? This might seem obvious, since they just told you to get out, but legally, this query is massive. It forces the officer to state on their body camera whether this is still a consensual encounter or if they are officially detaining you. If they say you are being detained, they must have reasonable suspicion of a crime beyond just the traffic ticket. By asking this, you are anchoring the legal record. If it turns out later that they didn't have a valid reason to detain you outside the car, everything they find after that moment could be suppressed in court. You are essentially setting a legal trap for the prosecution before you've even unbuckled your seatbelt. Once you've asked that, the next step is the physical shutdown. This is something almost everyone forgets because they are nervous. Before you exit, you need to turn off the car, remove the keys from the ignition, and roll up your window almost all the way, leaving just a tiny crack. Then, as you step out, you must close the door behind you and lock it. Why is this so important? Because of a legal concept called plain view. If you leave your car door wide open, you are inviting the officer to look inside and potentially claim they saw something suspicious on the floor or the seat. If the car is locked and the windows are up, you are maintaining your expectation of privacy. You are making it clear that you are not consenting to a search, and that the only reason you are outside is because you were ordered to be. As you step out, your biology is going to be your biggest hurdle. Your heart rate is likely over 100 beats per minute. Your hands might be shaking. In this state, your brain's social compliance reflex is at its peak. You want to talk. You want to explain. You want to say, "Officer, I was just heading home. I don't know why I need to get out." But this is the moment where silence becomes your most powerful weapon. Once you are out of the car, the officer is going to use visual and auditory scrutiny. They are looking at your balance. They are smelling your breath. They are watching for pupillary dilation. Every word you say provides more data for them to build a case of impairment or nervousness. The professional move is to exit. Stand calmly with your hands visible, and say, "I am complying with your order to exit the vehicle, but I am choosing to remain silent, and I do not consent to any searches." Let's talk about the pat down, or the Terry frisk. Once you are out of the car, the officer may try to pat you down for weapons. Legally, they can only do this if they have a reasonable fear that you are armed and dangerous. They cannot do it just because they feel like it. However, you should never physically resist a frisk, as that will lead to a scuffle and an arrest. Instead, you use your verbal objection. You say clearly, "Officer, I am not resisting, but I am stating for the record that I do not consent to this search or this frisk." This is your legal anchor. If the officer finds something, even something perfectly legal, and they didn't have a valid reason to frisk you, your lawyer can use your verbal objection to challenge the entire encounter in a suppression hearing. Without that objection, the court might assume you implicitly consented to be touched. Now, let's look at the recent scientific discoveries in cognitive bias that explain what's happening during this transition. There's a phenomenon called pre-seizure anxiety. When people are ordered out of a car, they often experience a temporal distortion. They feel like things are happening much faster than they actually are. This causes them to rush their movements or fumble with their belt. To a police officer trained in behavioral analysis, these normal signs of stress are often misinterpreted as deception or reaching for a weapon. This is why you must move with mechanical deliberateness. Move slowly. Announce your actions. Officer, I am unbuckling my seatbelt now. I am opening the door now. This verbal transparency de-escalates the officer's internal threat assessment and keeps you safe. Another vital discovery is the interrogator's mirror. When you are standing face to face with an officer on the roadside, your brain subconsciously begins to mirror their intensity. If the officer is being alpha or aggressive, you might feel the urge to push back or assert your rights loudly. This is a biological death trap. If you escalate, you are giving the officer a reason to use force or handcuff you for officer safety. The high-level legal move is to be the gray man. You want to be as boring and unreactive as possible. You are a legal entity, not a social participant. Your silence is not a challenge. It is a constitutional choice. Let's discuss the interstate differences in identification laws. In many stop and identify states, you are required to provide your name if you are outside the vehicle. Since you are now on the ground, the rules shift slightly from a simple traffic stop to a pedestrian detention. If the officer asks for your name, give it clearly and accurately. Do not use a nickname. Do not lie. Lying to an officer is a crime in almost every jurisdiction. Give your name, and then immediately re-invoke "My name is John Doe, and I am now re-invoking my right to remain silent." This compliance plus protection strategy is how you navigate the maze without getting lost. What happens if they start asking you questions about the car while you're standing on the sidewalk? Questions like, "Is there anything in there I should know about?" Or, "You're a good person. You wouldn't mind if I just did a quick safety sweep of the cabin, right?" This is where the locked door strategy pays off. Because you turned off the car, took the keys, and locked the door before getting out. The officer cannot just lean in and start rummaging around. They have to ask you for the keys or use force to enter. This physical barrier creates a legal barrier. It forces the officer to either get your consent, which you will never give, or to establish probable cause that will be scrutinized by a judge later. Without the car being locked, an officer might claim plain view or safety sweep to justify an entry that they otherwise wouldn't be allowed to make. There is a fascinating study in neurolaw regarding consent search rates. Statistics show that when people are outside of their vehicle, they are much more likely to say yes to a search request. Why? Because they feel exposed. They're den fast, the car has been taken away, and they feel a desperate need to resolve the situation and get back inside. This is a vulnerability response. The police know this. They order you out specifically to break your environmental confidence. They want you to feel small on the side of the road. By knowing this scientific reality, you can shield your mind. You can say to yourself, "The reason I feel nervous is because of the environment, not because I'm guilty." This self-talk allows you to maintain your no even when every social instinct is telling you to say yes. Let's talk about body-worn cameras in this context. Everything you do once you step out is being recorded from a high angle by the officer. This footage is designed to make you look under control by the state. To counter this, if you have a passenger or a witness, they should be filming the encounter from a parallel angle. While you are being ordered out, your passenger should stay in the car unless ordered out as well, and keep their camera rolling. If the officer tells the passenger to stop filming, that is a violation of the First Amendment in most circuits. Having multiple angles of the exit ensures that if the officer claims you stumbled or acted aggressively, you have objective proof to the contrary. Wait, what about field sobriety tests, FSTs, after you step out? This is the most common reason officers order people out of the car. They want to see if you can balance. Here is the legal truth. In almost every state, these physical tests are voluntary. They are not like a breathalyzer at the station which carries implied consent penalties. You have the right to say, "Officer, I am not comfortable performing those physical balance tests on the side of the road in the dark, but I am happy to cooperate with the legal requirements of the stop." By doing the tests, you are providing subjective evidence. The officer is the judge and jury of those tests. If they say you missed a step, you failed. If you don't do the tests, there is no failure to record. You are depriving the investigation of biased data. There is a recent discovery in forensic logistics regarding the side of the road environment. Roads are often slanted for drainage. There is gravel. There is wind from passing cars. These are environmental interference factors that make it almost impossible for a reasonable person to perform perfectly on a balance test. If you are ordered out, realize that the ground beneath your feet is hostile territory. Do not attempt to prove your sobriety through physical feats. Use your legal standing instead. One of the most important things to do first when ordered out is to document the order. Say it out loud for the microphone. "Officer, I am only stepping out of this vehicle because you are ordering me to do so. I am not doing this voluntarily." This eliminates the consensual encounter defense for the police. In court, the prosecution often tries to argue that the resident voluntarily stepped out to chat. By vocally stating it is an order, you preserve the seizure status of the encounter, which heightens the level of probable cause. The officer must prove. Let's look at the second-person scenario. One will usually manage you while the other manages the car. This is called splitting the focus. While you are talking to Officer A, Officer B is looking through your windows with a high-powered flashlight. This is why the windows up doors locked rule is the golden rule. If Officer B sees a spent shell casing or a small plastic baggie through the glass, they have probable cause. But if the windows are tinted or the interior is obscured and the door is locked, they are stuck. They cannot search without a reason. Your exit procedure is what determines if Officer B gets to go on a fishing expedition or if they have to stand there and wait. The lawyer's roadmap for the exit is 1. Ask if you're detained. 2. Turn off the car and take the keys. Windows up, door locked. 4. Vocalize the non-consent and the order status. 5. Hands visible at all times. You have done more to protect your future freedom than almost any other traveler on the road. You are managing the physics and the law of the stop simultaneously. Let's discuss the psychology of authority. When an officer tells you to step out, they are looking for telltale signs of guilt. These include grooming gestures, touching your face, avoidance behaviors, not looking them in the eye or oversharing. By staying silent and moving deliberately, you are starving their contextual evaluation. You are a black box to them. This is the most protective state you can be in. By being perfectly compliant, but verbalizing non-consent, you make it very risky for an officer to manufacture an arrest. If the camera shows you being a model citizen, any arrest for obstruction looks like retaliation to a judge. Your good behavior is your legal armor. What about the weather? If it's raining or freezing, the officer might use the weather to coerce you into the back of the patrol car to stay warm. This is a secondary detention area. Once you are in the patrol car, you are in their home turf. There are cameras and microphones in there that you cannot see. The order to step out does not mean order to get into my patrol car unless they are officially arresting you. If they suggest you sit in their car, ask, "Am I required by law to sit in your vehicle, or can I wait here by my car?" Most of the time, they cannot force you into the patrol car without an arrest. Stay in the neutral zone of the sidewalk if possible. There is also the plain smell doctrine. While you are getting out, the officer is sniffing the air from your cabin. This is why you roll the windows up almost all the way before the stop even begins. By managing the airflow, you are managing the olfactory evidence. Even if you have nothing illegal, sense can be subjective. An officer might smell something that isn't there to justify a search. By keeping the aroma of your car inside the car, you are closing a legal window. The lawyer explains method is about cognitive sovereignty. You are the manager of your own data stream. The police are data harvesters. Every move you make, every word you say, and every vibe you put out is data they are going to sell to a prosecutor. By stepping out the right way, you are providing low-quality data to the state. You are being unincriminating by design. This is how you win in the long run. Think about the big picture. A traffic stop is a temporary seizure. It is supposed to last only as long as it takes to resolve the original reason for the stop, the speeding, the broken taillight, etc. When they order you out, they are extending the seizure. Every minute you stand on that sidewalk, the legal burden on the officer is growing. If they hold you there for 30 minutes without new evidence, the seizure becomes unreasonable. Your exit procedure is the starting gun for that time clock. If you talk and give them new evidence, you reset the clock. If you stay silent, the clock keeps ticking toward your freedom. The order to step out is a pivot point. It is where a civil interaction can become a criminal case. By knowing the MIMS rule that you must get out, and the Fourth Amendment rule that you don't have to consent, you are bilingual in the language of the law. You are speaking compliance with your body and resistance with your words. This dual-track strategy is the only way to survive a high-pressure stop with your rights intact. Recent scientific discoveries in social compliance show that presence of a camera like a body cam actually makes officers more likely to follow procedures correctly, but more likely to interpret silence as hostility if not handled correctly. This is why politeness is not optional. You are programming the camera. You want the judge to see the contrast between the professional citizen and the questioning officer. If you are rude, the contrast disappears, and the judge will side with the authority figure. Let's discuss the final movement of the exit. Once you are standing on the sidewalk, ask officer, "I have complied with your order. May I return to my vehicle now?" This is another anchor. It shows that you are eager to terminate the detention. It highlights that the extension of the stop is the officer's choice, not yours. This documented desire to leave is powerful evidence of a non-consensual seizure if the case goes to court. Innocence is often used as a reason to be careless. People think, "I have nothing in the car, so I'll just leave the door open and let them look." This is the innocence fallacy. An officer might find a small piece of plastic that they believe contains a substance, and even if it's eventually proven to be sugar, you have just spent 18 hours in a cell and thousands on a lawyer. Innocence is a legal conclusion reached at the end of a trial. Privacy is a shield you use at the beginning. Don't trade your shield for a conclusion that hasn't happened yet. The Lawyer Explains series is about redefining the power dynamic. We are taught that the badge has all the power, but the constitutional rights you carry are the true power. When you step out of that car correctly, you are activating your power. You are saying, "I am a citizen with rights, and I know how to use them." This self-actualization is the most protective state a human can be in during a state encounter. Remember the keys. They are the physical symbol of your consent. If an officer says, "Give me the keys so I can check the trunk," and you hand them over, you have consented in the eyes of many courts. If they ask for the keys, you say, "Officer, I am not consenting to a search of my trunk. If you are ordering me to give you the keys, I will comply with the order under protest, but I am not giving you permission." This conditional compliance is the high-water mark of legal protection. It turns their search into a forced entry, which is much harder for them to defend in a suppressed evidence hearing. The countdown to your legal safety starts the moment the lights come on, but the critical phase is the exit. By turning off the car, locking the door, asking the detention status, and invoking your silence, you have closed the gates to your private life. You have turned a vulnerable moment into a fortified position. The history of law is the history of the person versus the state. The traffic stop is the most frequent modern battlefield of that history. By stepping out with professionalism and knowledge, you are winning the battle for your future. You are not a target, you are an informed individual. And that is a discovery that leaves the prosecution with nothing to say. Stay curious about the mechanics of liberty. It's not just about laws, it's about actions. What you do with your hands, your keys, and your words in those first 30 seconds outside the car will dictate your life for the next year. And you stand there in the cool night air, take a deep breath. You did it. You followed the roadmap. You protected your legacy, and you showed the camera what a rights-aware citizen looks like. That is the victory. That is the science. And that is the lawyer's way. Keep watching the data. Keep reading the rulings. The law is a moving target, but knowledge is in steady aim. You are now equipped for the exit, and when those doors lock and your foot hits the ground, you are ready for whatever comes next. The legal code of the road is now decoded for you. Stand tall, stay silent, and move toward your future with confidence. The awakening of your legal agency has happened. You are no longer guessing what to do. You are executing a plan. And in the game of justice, a plan is the only thing that wins. The exit is the stage. And you have just performed brilliantly. That is the truth from the trench of the legal world. And that is why this is what you do first.